Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm really excited to talk to Beth Sturdevant about energy medicine and spiritual healing. And that's what Beth does. She's known for her contributions in the field of personal development, healing, and the arts, as she is also a classical cellist. You don't want to miss this episode because it may help us all with reviving our hope and our ability to transform our lives. Now, she is based in Ottawa, Canada, and she has a profound dedication to helping people overcome their personal challenges and achieve their full potential. And don't we need that today? Because life is full of challenges. So, with that said, let me invite Beth. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, so Beth, I've been fascinated by you because we're Facebook friends, and I see some of the posts you put up. It's very deep. It's very um, insightful and very helpful, actually. Sometimes it resonates with what you're going through. So I wonder if you could just give me a little bit of background and what led you to search for healing in the first place.
Mm, absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a trained professional classical cellist. That was pretty much the route I took and what I did professionally for a long part of my life, having lived and traveled around the world and, eventually ending up in New York City and having wonderful experiences as a cellist, these very privileged experiences, but earned as well, playing with various people and opportunities. But it wasn't until, we'll say, life directed me on a new path, one that I did not consciously choose, we'll say, where my fiance at the time, when I was living in New York City, um, both cheated on me, but then also left me while I was pregnant with, uh, well, he did it twice. The first time when I was pregnant with our first child, then we reconciled, got back together. And then a year later, again, the same thing happened. This time I was pregnant with our second son.
Oh dear, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry you went through that.
Oh, I mean, I'll say yes, I am too, because it has not been easy. However, it's again mm, brought these opportunities of personal growth and brought me to this place I am today, which I'm eternally grateful for. I would never want to experience it again, but I'm very grateful for having gone through it because of where I am right now. So all that to say is I left New York, came back to Ottawa for support with my family. My parents were here. And I left my career basically, kind of embarked on this new, I'm not gonna even say it was an adventure because it wasn't fun. Um, and through that process of rediscovering who I was as a full-time single mother, leaving my career that I knew behind, um, and just feeling very lost, I kind of went down not so healthy paths, made not so healthy choices for myself as part of that
Mhm.
trauma process. So through all of that, experimenting and not so healthy choices, I got to a place within myself where I realized I have to get better. Like this can't continue. It's just do or die. And I'd met years later somebody that I fell madly in love with. I mean, love that I'd never experienced or even knew existed. And because of circumstances in his life and my life with my children, that relationship didn't continue. But that's the catalyst. That breakup was the catalyst for me to actually seek healing.
Mhm.
Not that I wasn't doing therapy before or I was on medication. I was doing everything you were supposed to do, the only way that you knew how to, basically, right? That was understood at the time. But none of it worked long term. They were kind of band-aid solutions. So when I got to that breaking point within myself, I was introduced, so to speak, or I became aware of a local Algonquin medicine man who offers uh, healing programs through the Eighth Fire. So his name is Pete Bernard, and he offers these programs, these extensive programs of healing. So I felt called to try it. I was very apprehensive because
Mhm.
I didn't believe it. Also, the first course that I took with him was a course that was um, combined, we'll say, shamanism, energy medicine, spiritual healing with work with angels and God. And at the time, I had a very contentious relationship with God, angels. I didn't believe, but yet I just felt called to do it because what choice did I have at that point? It was like I needed help. And so I began the course, and it was only through continuously being shown time and time and time again how it worked that I continued on that path. So I completed that 2-year course, of course, with the original intention to heal other people, but really it was to heal myself.
Mhm.
And then I did the next one. And then I did the next one. So 8 years later, after completing all of these courses and working as a TA and really adopting that way of life, that practice, um, where I can now confidently offer it to others and speak truly to the, the positive powers of that type of healing work. So that's how I came to it. That's how I saved myself on numerous occasions, and how I'm able to then offer that to other people who choose to seek my assistance.
Okay, so let me just dive a little deeper into some of the terms that you used. For our viewers, maybe you could let me know what is energy medicine?
Absolutely. Yes, it's it's hard to define the undefinable, right?
Mhm.
I always kind of compare it to, it's really hard to even define God. So it's really hard to define it. So, one of the ways we define it is energy medicine. So you hear of a medicine person,
Mhm.
a medicine healer. So what that essentially means is somebody who's able to work with the various different elements around us energetically and use that, including the elements and the energy that we ourselves have. I mean, everything I know, everyone knows, everything is made of energy.
Right.
So it's using and accessing that energy for the purpose of healing.
Yep. And you know what? There may be people who don't believe that everything is energy, but
Mhm.
Einstein is the one who basically said everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. That is
Exactly.
a quote from Einstein. So, and he said, if you match the frequency of the energy you want, you cannot help but get that reality.
Mm.
So this was like whatever in the 1930s. So you know what? I'm not going to argue with Einstein.
No, it's hard to argue with Einstein. Absolutely. And we can, we can try and quantify it and bring scientific meaning to it. But I mean, we only believe what we believe and know what we know by experiencing it. And it was only through my experience of it repeatedly over and over, but also combined with my own will to heal, my own will to be different, my
Mhm.
own ability to persevere despite myself and my own fears and limitations that wanted to keep me back. So it's that combination where we then start to experience something different. And like you said, with the vibrations and the frequencies, you then become the space for healing where healing can happen. And if you aren't that space, it can't happen. you're not going to resonate like in an orchestra, right? When you're
Right.
out of tune, the frequencies and the vibrations and the harmonics are going to be dissonant. They're not going to vibrate at the same rate. So it's the same with us as energetic beings of made of frequency and vibration and energy. Um, so really it's, the best way to prove whether or not it's real is by actually genuinely trying and experimenting to experience the type of healing.
What is in that terminology, that umbrella called energy medicine? Would it be meditation? Is that part of it? Energy healing, like
That
Reiki?
would be energy healing. I mean, some people, I mean, I am trained in quantum shamanic Reiki, which is Reiki, but it's adding shamanism and quantum physics to it per se, where we deal with the concept of time and how you perceive things becomes reality and things like that. But Reiki is energy healing. It's tapping into the universal life force energy that's around us and using that to heal. Is that enough? From my perspective, no. From my experience, no. You have to go deeper than the energy. Energy, there's this, the way things come into form, there's like this spectrum of healing, so to speak, right? There's the void where everything is created, and whatever happens then has a rate and frequency, vibration, and then that also vibration has a sound, and then that sound creates energy, and the energy creates matter. So there's many different levels and layers before energy even comes into play. So it is one of the elements of healing, but it is not the only way. And so that's why combining it with the spiritual healing, and by spirit I mean belief systems, who we are, what drives us, that internal force that either helps us or hinders us, right? So you cannot discount our desire for change, because that's what's going to get us through. What's going to actually help us heal. Without that, it's not possible. It's just not. So really identity comes into it big time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the
So,
spiritual.
so are there, would you consider like acupressure, acupuncture? Would you consider, Reiki, meditation? All of those fit under the energy medicine umbrella,
No,
or no?
no. Those I would consider to be self-care,
Okay.
to help unblock, to help things flow so that you feel good. But they're not, that they alone are not going to heal it, because until you get to the layers, the root, the base of what causes you to do what you do, what causes you to make the choices you make,
Mhm.
nothing's going to change, right? So, it's like when people buy crystals and sage their homes and things like that, they are good. They're going to help nurture the space, and they do create positive energy in your space, but they're not going to heal you,
Mhm.
right? So combining it all together, wonderful, beautiful. But until you get to the reasons why you make the choices, you continue to repeat the patterns, you're continuing to feel the way you feel, why nothing ever changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that stuff eventually becomes even more discouraging, I'd say. You get to a deeper place of hopelessness,
Mhm.
because you're like, why am I doing, I'm doing the acupuncture, and I'm not saying they don't work. Like, I'm
Mhm.
being very clear, I'm not saying they don't work.
Mhm.
But when you get to that point where you're like, God, I'm going to therapy, I've been going for years, I'm paying all this money, I'm taking the medicine, I'm being told this is what's wrong with me, and I'm doing what I need to do to quote unquote fix it. But why do I still feel like this? Why do I still have this whatever? Why is my life not shifting and changing? And that creates a deep sense of hopelessness
Mhm.
that is often hard to come out of.
So is it like peeling the layers of the onion where, you peeled one layer and you see, oh, geez, there's even more hopelessness in that layer that I didn't really know about. And
Sometimes,
then you keep peeling and peeling, and it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know there were so many layers.
yeah, sometimes. And that's why it's really vitally important to have um, a guide, so to speak, a healer who is able to get down deep into those layers, who's able to take you through it, because we get to this point where we want to give up. Most of the clients that I have that actually get to the other side, we'll say, of whatever it is that's their deepest issues, we'll say,
Mhm.
get to a point where they want to give up, right? It's like in childbirth. Right
Mhm.
before the baby is born, we often are like, I'm done. Forget about it. I can't go, keep going.
Mhm.
So that's the point, the most important point. It's like, no, you're there. And that's where the warrior spirit, that's where the warrior comes in within each of us to help us persevere and to find that those capacities within ourselves to keep going, to want to keep going, because it is. And that's why most people don't even start, because subconsciously, our subconscious mind's like, ooh, danger, danger, danger.
Right. I don't want to see what's lurking
And it's
in the
difficult.
deeper layers of my being.
Exactly. So we often, like, I always use the visualization of going around a cave, going around the mountain. You're examining the cave, you're looking at the cave, there's something inside the cave that's dangerous, that's kind of controlling you, like a dragon or something that's hoarding all of the knowledge and the stuff that you want, truly your soul wants. So we're going to go around and we're going to keep thinking we're actually doing the work because we're not actually going into it, but I feel good, sort of, whatever. But eventually, if you actually want to have the peace, the harmony, the boon, as Joseph Campbell would say, if you actually want the knowledge and the healing, you got to go in the cave and face that dragon and then claim it, right?
Mhm.
Reclaim, we'll say. So it isn't easy. And that's why, it's very, very, very much like the hero's journey,
Mhm.
right?
And you mentioned the work. I'm wondering, what do you mean by the work of healing? What
Um,
is that work and what does it involve?
yeah, it means continuing to show up, continuing to heal, continuing to practice the things that you want, right? It's um because it does take work. People will come and we'll do a session and we'll work on something, we'll heal it. And it's not the absence of the wound that's the healing, it's the presence of something healthy in its place. That's the actual healing.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of healing modalities and things like that, that's where they fall short, is that they're working just on the wound and removing it. But well, if you don't replace that with something healthy, it's just going to be more toxic stuff is going to fill it. So the work is that constant removing, replacing as you're rebuilding and growing into the person you want to be. And so it does take a lot of effort. And some of that work is um, nurturing yourself, right?
Mhm.
Some
Mhm.
of that work is, you know, showing yourself compassion and grace. Some of the work is truly living what forgiveness means.
Mhm.
It's not always the lying in my on my healing table and crying, oh my God, blah 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 blah. It's also how are you practicing this? How are you bringing it into your real everyday life so
Mhm.
that you can become the things that you want to become and make the changes you want to make?
Are there specific practices that help people, get to the healing stage or through the healing stage?
Mm, mm.
Are there particular things that people do? I mean, in within the energy medicine field,
You mean on their own or with somebody?
with a practitioner, say.
Well, I mean, because because I know what I know and I've experienced what I've experienced with success through the energy medicine work and the spiritual healing modalities that I've taken and trained in and seen. I I know that they work, but I can't speak to other practitioners in other fields.
Mhm.
Um, Perhaps. I mean,
So if I come to you with a problem, you know, are we gonna just talk about it? Are you gonna do Reiki on me, or are you going to, I don't know, show me where my thinking is off, or my, you know, uh,
mhm.
where my traumas might be because of how how I'm handling them, how what my emotions do, or you know, what can I expect?
Yeah. Well, I'm never going to show you anything. I'm going to help you see what you can't see normally. So when people talk, when you tell me there's something going on in your life, you're seeing it from a very narrow perspective that really you're not even, that's your understanding, but you don't actually understand why or how you've gotten to this place.
Mhm.
So it's my job as a spiritual healer and the energy medicine worker to help you see what you don't see, to help you know what you don't know, and to help you heal what you don't think that is possible to heal. And I don't do it per se by telling you, I do it by showing you.
Okay.
So through kind of a brief conversation, because it's not talk therapy, talking is just, again, that's just going around the cave. I
Right.
guide you and I lead you into that cave safely where you are always in control. It's not hypnosis.
Mhm.
You're always in control of your experience. So whether it's a guided journey, a shamanic journey where I am like the Gandalf, if you have ever read Lord of the Rings, where I'm
Mhm.
leading you on a journey, so to speak, in search of the answers,
Mhm.
but also the healing and then the medicine behind it. So it's not, again, it's not just the absence of the wound. We're going to find the answers, we're going to get to the root, and then we're going to replace it with something healthy that you want, the healed outcome, so to speak. So it's either that, or sometimes people are silent, they're not able or ready to go on that kind of a journey. And I will do it either on their behalf
Mhm.
or I'll work with different elements and aspects of spirit, creator, energy, and I will basically work with their bodies and their subconscious mind in finding that answer, getting to the root cause and healing, and again, replacing it with something healthy. And while I'm doing it, often I'm telling the person everything that I'm doing. You know, I'm working silently on my own so that they can just receive. But I'm saying, this is what I'm finding, this is what's happening, this is why, and this is what we're working on. So it really depends on where somebody's at,
Mhm.
what they need, and what we're working on.
Now, do you need to know what happened in their lives? Is that part of,
No,
you don't?
no.
Okay.
Uh, so if you were to book a session, let's say next
Mhm.
week,
Mhm.
in shamanic time, where time is an illusion, it doesn't exist.
Mhm.
We're already healing. We've already begun the session. As soon as you've made that conscious choice to come and see and work with me, things are already starting to happen. So what that means is by the time you physically show up for the session's already begun. I've already started working on you. So emotions may be coming up. Things might be happening in your world that are causing you to get triggered or react or have thoughts that you never thought about before. And so when people come into session, it's usually what is going on in the exact moment. And then using that exact moment, that trigger, that whatever, we will then reverse engineer and get to why. Because whatever we're feeling today, the emotions, the triggers that we have,
Yeah.
it's not about today. It's
Mhm.
rooted in something that we've experienced in the past, whether through our parents, through our intergenerationally, or through our own experiences. So it's an opportunity. It's just presenting itself. It's, this is what I'm experiencing. Now let's actually heal why,
Mhm.
so that it no
Mhm.
longer affects me the same way.
So you mentioned shamanism. How does that factor into this process?
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky term. It is something that people are starting to use more and more, be comfortable with the term, because it is, again, it's hard to define this unknown. Shamanism is essentially that, like going into the subconscious mind. The shaman is the person that guides you into different worlds, and different worlds are just indicative of our consciousness, right? Subconscious world is the lower world.
Yeah.
Middle world is what we know today in reality, in this three-dimensional existence. And then the upper world is where, we're super conscious, where we manifest and we dream and all of that stuff. So a shaman is somebody who's going to be able to access and work with the spirits and the energy and guide people through those worlds for, again, healing, answers, but also creation, so to speak. Where it gets tricky is that shamanism has existed for centuries. It is the oldest form of therapy that
Right.
human,
I heard that it could be as old as 500,000 years
exactly.
old.
It's
Yeah.
just we didn't have a term for it. So in each majority of cultures and tribes always had a medicine person, a shaman, a healer there, whatever title you want to use. Again, a word, a rose by any other name will still smell as sweet. All that matters is what are they doing? They're healing. They're there to guide. They're to help, to heal. Where it gets tricky today is that everybody's so hungry for that. They want to be defined, that they want, people are starting to call themselves shaman when they haven't earned that title or it hasn't been given to them.
Mhm.
Because often in those situations, in those cultures, a true shaman is somebody who has walked through the fire themselves, come through the other side, learned through experience and teachings, and then taken on that role because the others have given and trusted them in doing so. But now it's like, oh, I've taken this online course on Udemy. I'm now a shaman. Why? Because I kind of dabble in some spirituality and I think I have an understanding. Okay, well, have you done the work? How do I know that you've actually walked your talk? How do I know that you've been through the fire? And so and this is where it gets tricky because there's no regulation. How do you regulate that? So that's where we as humans need to learn to trust our intuition and to be wary of quote unquote healers and shamans. Because I know, I'd say I could count on one hand the people I would trust to actually work with me and on me. And because it's tricky because we're really having to build that trust and they're going deep, right? They're going deep into our subconscious mind. So it can be a dangerous place. But I know a lot of healers who eventually crash because they haven't actually healed themselves. We go to this idea where, oh, well, if I become a healer, then I'm going to feel better about myself. And it's altruistic, it's with good intentions, of course. But then that means I don't have to go into my own caves because now look, I'm doing good in the world. I'm all I want to do is help people. That makes me feel good. It's a wonderful thing. Yes. But can we talk about the dragon in your cave and how that's going to affect how you show up for the people you're working with?
Mhm.
And that's where it gets tricky. So a lot of quote unquote healers who haven't done the work often self-implode eventually.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you think that you have to be healed to some level in order to help others heal? Because are we not, and this is a question to you, are we not on a continuous journey of healing? Because it's deeper and deeper layers. That's been my experience.
That's a great question. Well, my then I would ask, what is the purpose of healing? What is the end goal? What does it mean to be healed? What is the point if there's no end? Because I certainly don't want to keep going. That's why I was so discouraged with traditional therapy. And again, it's not to say it doesn't work. It didn't work for me, and it took too long, and I did not see any long-term results. So that to me was like, what is the point?
Mhm.
So if there is no end to healing, then why do it? It's just a waste of money. Um, so yes, I do strongly believe you have to be at a certain point before you're able to hold space safely for other people to be at a certain space within yourself, because otherwise then we transfer our traumas and our beliefs and our expectations onto others. And we also become affected by the things, by other people's traumas. But when you
Exactly.
resolve enough of the stuff within yourself, what happens around you doesn't affect you. And everyone, so many people are like, oh, I'm afraid to come see you because I don't want my stuff to affect you. I'm like, only by experiencing the fact that it doesn't will you know that you're safe in my space, because it doesn't. Because of the work I do, because of the training I've done, because of the healings I've done, it doesn't resonate with me. It's not there.
Mm.
And so sometimes it can be perceived as maybe insensitive because people can express and go through such horrible things and they're sharing all of it
Mhm.
and there's no reaction because there's no new story. There's no new story. It's just part of the trauma, part of the universal story of human suffering and
True.
our own personal interpretations, experiences along that story. So my goal as the healer is to not acknowledge the fact that you are the way you are, but to also to hold the space where you want to be. And if I can't do that, then I'm just working on the trauma, not on the healed outcome, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yes. So if I have my first session with you, um, you there's no intake per se. The person comes in, it's completely different from, cognitive based therapy and all of that, talk therapy. Uh, but the person comes in, you are a healer, you have sufficiently healed to a point where you are able now to help others. And what will you do? What are the things you're going to do in that first meeting? Let's just say you mentioned that the person is already on the healing journey if they've made the appointment.
Correct.
So, in that session, is there something that you will do with me to?
Well, I mean, I already described it in that whether it's we're going on a journey
Mhm,
or I'm doing stuff on my own using the various uh, extensive tools that I have,
mhm, mhm,
what you need at the time based on what you're experiencing. But there is no intake form. I mean, what we can do is I often like to, people like to have before and after. So we kind of like, Ismay, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being amazing, nothing could be better. I'm so happy. One being like, I'm done. Like, forget about it. I can't live anymore. Or my body's really hurting. I don't understand why this is hurting, blah, 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 blah. So we take that kind of intake at the start of the session. And then after we work, we go back to that number and say, where are you now? How are you feeling based on how you were when you first came in? Is there a change?
mhm.
Yes, I feel I was a 7. Now I'm a 2. There you go.
Okay. So you talked about these tools. I guess I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are these tools that you use?
Uh, I mean, I can't really adequately describe them without sounding like a loony person as far as like the spirits that I work with, whether we're doing karmic work, whether I'm working with your spiritual ancestors, whether I'm working with the spirit of wolf or bear medicine or um, the elements, the elemental energies that I work with, whether it's water, like it's so gravity. We work with gravity, anti-gravity for healing.
Right?
There's so many that it's kind of like an encyclopedia of what I work with. And often it's not even a conscious thing. It just starts to naturally flow and happen. Like your bodies and I say your bodies, not your physical, your mental, emotional, spiritual bodies,
Mhm.
will start to pull what it needs. Because I am literally all of those medicines, all of that stuff.
Hmm.
And so sometimes you will just start to draw out what you need before I even consciously am aware of it. But it does, again, it's extremely esoteric, and there's no, it's only through experience where you start to believe that it works. And I always say, like, if I'm going in for heart surgery
Mhm.
and I'm seeing a heart surgeon and he's going to operate me, I would never sit him down and say, exactly how are you going to do it? And tell me all the training you've done and all the things you're going to do and da, 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 da. Show me the book. All I care is that he's going to heal me and that I'm going to be alive and I'm going to wake up and be better.
Right.
So that's where the almost a suspension of disbelief comes in when you start to seek the assistance of a qualified healer, we'll say. Even when you're going to a therapist, how do you know it's going to work? How do you know what they do is actually going to help you?
You don't. And you will run into, if you've tried any therapy, people with whom you know immediately it's not going to work because what they're reflecting back uh, demonstrates that they haven't dealt with their own
Yeah,
traumas or issues, you know?
exactly.
So, yeah.
So it's only through trying and experimenting and trusting where we start to build a relationship with the people who can help us. And I always say with my clients, this is a we're in a dance. We're together in this. This is not Beth heal me. It's like, no, I'm going to help you heal yourself. Because the
Mhm.
end result in working with any healer is you don't need me anymore because you are the healing. You are the medicines. So it's just bringing you back to that truth, that universal truth, and that dissipating the illusion that we aren't all of those things.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so
So
that's a
it's
good.
essentially empowering people with their own ability to create. Is
Mhm.
that correct?
100%. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. Because whether or not you want to believe it, we are creating all the time. We are manifesting everything in your life at this exact moment. You
Right.
have created.
I totally believe that, Beth.
It's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
including the traumas, right? And people will go into, well, I didn't ask to be raped and I didn't. Of course not. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter. There's a story inside your mind that if I take you on a journey, that story exists. So
Mhm.
until that story stops playing, it's going to continue to live out and it's going to continue to need justification,
Mhm. Mhm.
you
I
know?
noticed one thing just on my own healing journey, which has been ongoing for a while, is you do come to a place of peace and contentment within, no matter what's going on outside. It's not even happiness. You can't say it's happiness because you can be happy one minute and then sad the next. It's it's a place of, I think, you know what? I'm just thinking about my own journey, and it's a place of being who you are, authenticity,
Mhm,
you know, being your authentic self, because that is what makes you feel good.
mhm.
I don't know. Does that relate at all?
Absolutely. I think what happens is we start to romanticize that notion of authentic self. And what is that, and we want that. So we want, because it is, that's the end goal, if you were to have one, of healing and of honoring self, is to come to that place of harmony, of truly just being. You don't have to think, you don't have to do, you just are. So there's this, that's where the deep inner peace and the knowing and the being is. You just are present without having to say, without having to do, without having to convince anybody else, including, especially, I would say, yourself.
Mhm. And yet, you know, you can be at that place and all these challenges, because life is full of challenges. Um, I think you can handle those challenges maybe a bit better if you're in that place of contentment. Um, but you're still handed a lot of different challenges, which is disruptive to that contentedness.
Mhm.
So, you know,
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's hard to be the calm within the storm, right? But for me, those are opportunities. If those are the moments where we see, I reacted that way. There's more work to be done,
mhm,
right? They're
mhm,
just kind of like in the Wizard of Oz, the wizard behind the curtain, like, whoop, okay, here's another one. And the more that we're shown and given these opportunities to see that within ourselves, the more we really build that inner harmony, inner contentment, all of those things you're saying, because then the other ones, they cease to exist. Like I still have moments along, I'm still human. We're still human having a human experience.
right,
So
right.
they're just, the more we start looking at these things that happen from us, we'll say, I'm not going to say they happen to us, and they don't happen, well, yes, they happen for us, but they actually come from us because we are constantly creating. The more we can see those, then the more control we have, the more power we have, the more choices we have to be and to do different. So I really, while I don't like them because they're not comfortable,
Mhm,
I'm grateful for those opportunities because then
mhm, mhm. Because
I show
those
myself.
opportunities are where you grow the most and
Exactly.
learn the most. And even if you're not working with somebody, I guess, um, you're forced to examine a lot of layers, or you'll be in crisis mode, I think, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm,
Yeah. So then that's where it becomes part of, that's where we really start to become empowered, is
mhm,
when we start realizing it really isn't about what other people do. It's how it affects me, how I
right.
let it affect me,
Mhm,
right? And how I should choose to show up and engage or not. That's within me, that's within my control.
mhm.
And if I lose control and if I get reactive or I get triggered, that person was just, they're our greatest teachers, right? They're like, here I am, Beth. I'm going to show up in this situation to help you learn what you need to do for yourself on your healing path so that you can find the peace within yourself. Dot, 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 dot.
Mhm,
Um, that's where we really truly have the most power and control.
mhm. And so, what are the lessons that you've learned from being on this journey?
The lessons that I've learned from being on this journey is, the greatest one is that have you ever seen the movie Labyrinth?
No.
Okay. I have this theory that all of life is tied to this movie, Labyrinth. It's with David Bowie from the 80s.
Okay.
And there's a scene at the end where, the whole time the protagonist is going in search of her baby brother who's been kidnapped by this goblin king, David
Mhm,
Bowie. And at the end, she finally is face to face with this um, antagonist, this goblin king. And, finally she has this realization, you have no power over me. And it crumbles everything. The entire world disintegrates.
mhm.
So the greatest lesson I have is that nobody has power and control over me that I do not willingly give to them,
Right.
right? Including my own subconscious, including my own self-sabotage, including all of those aspects. And so the sooner and the greater we can collapse that space between the separation between me and creator, whatever, the illusion that here's this higher being that's judging me and controlling me. Instead, we realize, no, actually, I am creator. I create the hell around me or the heaven around me based on what I want to believe or how I behave, right? So the more we can start to realize that all of that power and the illusion of disconnection and disconnection from each other and all of that stuff, that separation is really just a separation from self, from truly being who we want to be and and having all of that inner peace and harmony we want with ourselves. So that's the greatest lesson, is dissipating and breaking that illusion of separation.
Okay. And do you have any words of wisdom for our viewers who are interested in this path?
Words of wisdom would say is don't give up. Don't let your ego stop you from exploring. The greatest inventors, the greatest explorers of this world took chances. They went places that nobody knew existed, but yet they knew they had to go. They knew they had to do it. They just knew within themselves that everybody has that capacity within themselves, whether or not they choose to allow that to be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
So try not to snuff that inner voice, inner knowing, and hopefully within that you will find whatever it is that you're looking for yourself.
That's a great note to end on. And I really appreciate you being here. And I was, wandering through Facebook and I encountered this Katie Camara. I don't know if you know of her. She's a spiritual teacher. She's an author, radio host, holistic wellness consultant. And when I read this written text from her, I just thought of you, Beth. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read it.
Please.
Okay. So it says, when you are transparent, you become unmistakable. No shadows, masks, or veils to blur the truth of who you are. In your transparencies, others can look through you and into the core of your being, where your heart and essence glow with an unfiltered light. You stand as you are, clear and direct, with a kindness that needs no explanation. There is no mystery to untangle. You leave no one puzzled or lost in the aftermath of your words or actions. You are not a riddle, but a presence fully understood. In your honesty, you refuse to hide. You carry the courage to show up fully, stripped of pretense or armor. You are bravery embodied, raw truth in human form. In this nakedness, you don't waver or seek approval. Your transparency is not weakness, but the purest strength. It is a declaration. This is who I am. You let yourself be seen, and in that openness, you stand out in a world that often shrouds itself in layers of pretense. Your authenticity shines like a beacon, guiding others towards their own. There you go. I thought of you.
Thank you for sharing that.
And it kind of sums up, you know, pretty much everything that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A being that's just being without having to prove or
yeah,
do.
yeah. So I want to thank you very much for being a guest on this podcast. Hopefully, it'll help many other people who are seeking a path, maybe a different path than all the traditional modalities. Yeah, so this is just another modality. And I think the main thing is just continue to seek until you find something that works for you.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Okay, so with that said, please comment on any of the content here, what you think about this. Have you tried it before? This kind of healing? Yeah, any of your comments we're inviting. Thank you. Thanks everyone for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe.